Starter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined today by Steve Gesell. He is the police chief in the city of San Luis Obispo, but recently he traveled thousands of miles to visit Israel and the Palestinian territories. You were with a group. It was part of a counterterrorism seminar. And I want to get a sense from you what you saw as you traveled through. Let's start with the Israeli territory. What did you see? What did you learn?
Well, first of all, it's a very rare occasion, which I was very thankful to be invited to attend, and primarily for my role on the California Police Chiefs Association Board of Directors, and it's completely sponsored by the Anti-Defamation League. So, a group of California police executives went over there primarily to learn from the best. This is a country, quite frankly, that experiences terrorism like no others, and certainly like Americans are generally not used to.
I mean, I remember hearing a statistic when I went through a similar seminar as a journalist in Los Angeles, that if we extrapolated the number of terrorist incidents that Israelis feel to what would happen in Los Angeles if Mexico was lobbying those types of incidents, it would be like 250,000 a year.
Right.
I mean, or 250,000 deaths. I mean, it was just some crazy statistic.
What makes it even more mind-boggling is you use the analogy of Mexico and California, which is, you know, this is a country that's surrounded by terrorist threats, but the other added nuance is you take San Diego and say, okay, Chula Vista is
right on that border.
Well, Chula Vista's inside your border, and it's the Gaza Strip essentially. So, and you have those types of issues inside your own country, which is what Israel has, which is why they have what's called the West Bank.
Right. So, as you're walking through, let's say, Tel Aviv, which is not necessarily near the West Bank or Gaza, did you feel safe?
Well, none of us knew what to expect. I mean, I think we're pretty typical Americans, and we got there, and surprisingly, the first thing we learned was Tel Aviv is probably one of the safest cities that I've ever been in of its size. I mean, you can walk around 2 or 3 in the morning without any fear.
It's coastal.
Being mugged.
Right, it's coastal, and so it's not near the Gaza or the West Bank, as I said. It's beautiful beaches.
Surfers.
And, active nightlife.
That was pretty wild.
But then Jerusalem.
Right.
It literally is, I mean, some would say part of Jerusalem is the West Bank. And so how did you feel as you walked through Jerusalem?
Jerusalem is a place like no other on earth, is what our takeaway was. And from a policing perspective, it's community policing at the highest level, as the city itself is divided up into 4 different sections based on religious belief. And policing those 4 sections is dramatically different and can be very, very charged, because many of the individuals in these different religions don't get along, and these are all shared holy sites in many cases. So presents very, very interesting challenges. You
also went to Tiberias, which is on the Israeli side. It's in the north, I believe. Is that right? And it's a small city.
Correct.
How did that feel to you, being a small city, as opposed to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem?
Tiberias, was far less traveled, I think, than certainly Jerusalem or even Bethlehem, which is inside the West Bank.
Which we'll talk about in a second. Let's talk about Bethlehem. Bethlehem, obviously, to Christians could be one of the holiest places in the world. But like you said, it is on the West Bank side. It is controlled by the Palestinian Authority. And so, I mean, look, going to Israel or the PA territory has got to be a little unnerving. How was it for you? Really give us a sense. What was it like walking through Bethlehem, which is completely controlled militarily and police-wise by the Palestinian Authority?
Correct. In certain areas of the West Bank, you have Israeli military and Palestinian Authority police. In certain other areas, which is where Bethlehem is, total Palestinian control, military and police. So that was the only time we went inside the West Bank where it was under total Palestinian control, and you're in different land.
Right.
So
did it feel different than when you were in Israel? Could you sense it that you were in a different place?
From our exposure, and this was like a rolling classroom. I mean, we were sleep deprived, and it was a phenomenal educational experience. But yeah, I mean, there's a different vibe to every city and every area we went. So what I saw, certainly there was a different vibe there, no doubt.
So when you were there, you did not have the protection, presumably, of the Israeli military, which I presume you had on the Israeli side, or at least Israeli police. You were, flying solo. So as you're walking down the streets in Bethlehem, How'd you feel? I mean, you didn't have your San Luis Obispo police badge on. You didn't have your gun with you.
And again, I think a lot of it is perception and reality. And the reality after we were there is Bethlehem obviously is a very heavily traveled tourist destination, even though it's in the West Bank. And that certainly that's an economic driver for the Palestinians, and they treat that area very special. So I believe you're actually very safe in that area.
And you met with the Palestinian Authority police.
Correct.
You met with them.
The regional police chief in that area, which was a rare occasion according to the ADL. They had some of their local reps come with us.
Tell us about it. That had to have been fascinating.
It was. I mean, you came in there and you see the different photographs on the wall.
It would be Mahmoud Abbas and presumably Yasser Arafat.
Yasser Arafat, those photos are right behind the chief when he spoke. He spoke no English. They have what's called the tourist police there. And they translated everything for him. It was a full room. But they were extremely hospitable. Gave us some refreshments, and we shared some refreshments. Very few of them spoke English. The tourist police, they fluent in English and studied abroad. But the rest of the Palestinian Authority police, they didn't speak English.
Were they appreciative of your visit? Were they wary because you're American? Were they wary because you were brought by a group that is affiliated with the Jewish community?
I didn't get that impression. I mean, there was a platform. I mean, they gave us some information that I think it's even even titled the platform.
Please,
I believe.
the
position. I'm sorry. So, I brought, this is the gift bag they gave us, and it's, it says the position. So where am I looking at
Palestinian position on current issues. Fascinating.
So, and it's obviously, well organized publication in English, and they definitely have a platform as what they, gave to us. They opened it up for questions. We gave them some questions. We had some refreshments, and we were.
You were on your way. Now you didn't make it to Gaza. Most people don't. Gaza is seen as the wild, wild west, if I can use that cliche.
Right. Gaza is a very, very complex problem, and we never even went remotely close to Gaza, and we didn't ask why. There's certainly the missile defense system that they have, which is a story in itself.
But you did go to the Syrian border.
We did.
Which is a little spooky, if I may say, because we know that Syria, even when you were visiting at the end of 2014, large swaths of Syria is controlled by ISIS.
Sure.
And so how is that for you?
Well, the area we're up when there was UN vehicles there, and it was an old bunker from the 60s when Israel was at war. And while we were there, we saw an explosion that was a very rare occasion at that time. Where the Syrians were detonating some ordnance, is what we were told on the other side. But I was telling you before, 48 hours after we got back, the Israelis shot down that Syrian MiG at the exact location where we're at.
So, what lessons did you learn from this trip?
Well, there's many, and some people. That's a very common question. What does a chief from San Luis Obispo? What do you get from Israel? And this trip, and again, I've been to many counterterrorism courses throughout, particularly since 9/11. Been in the business a couple of years.
Yeah, clearly.
But the culture there, and the information sharing and exchange, and just what's ingrained in their entire culture to harden the target essentially, and to adapt to different evolutions of terrorist threats that you see, from suicide bombers to rockets and missiles, and then the latest one were the tunnels and the Mumbai-style assaults. Just watching all of that, and just the complex system that they have that's so multifaceted to address the threat that not only comes from just about every side of that country, which is in relative terms very, very small. But also inside their country, and it's such a complex issue.
I can only imagine. His name is Steve Gesell. He is the police chief in San Luis Obispo. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.